The 2008 Mumbai terror attacks mastermind Zakir Rahman Lakhvi has been arrested in Pakistan's Punjab province. Lakhvi, who played a key role in planning the deadly 26/11 attack, was arrested over terror funding charges. Pakistan's Counter-Terrorism Directorate has arrested the terrorist for now, and Lakhvi is accused of running a dispensary, which was in fact using funds collected for terror financing. Lakhvi has also been accused of using these funds for personal expenses. According to the anti-terror body, the terrorist will now face the trial before the anti-terrorism court in Lahore. Zakir Rahman Lakhvi is known as the top leader of the terrorist group Lashkar-e-Toiba, and Lakhvi is said to be leading the terrorist operations in Kashmir as well. It is important to note that the crackdown from Pakistan comes at a time when the country is looking to exit the FATF, that is the terror financing watchdog's grey list.
Yeah, William, this news was actually leaked yesterday by a Russian envoy on his Twitter account. When it started being widely reported this morning, Iranian authorities confirmed the news that they had informed the IAEA, the UN's nuclear watchdog, that they're planning on enriching uranium at 20% purity. In order to build a nuclear bomb, you need enriched uranium at 90% purity. So technically, Iran has taken a significant step towards that. However, Iran has long maintained that it has a peaceful nuclear program, that it's not looking for a bomb. And experts agree, in order for Iran to actually build a bomb, they need to do much more than enrich uranium, including a testing phase of the bomb, which is very difficult to do in secret. Nevertheless, Washington, Israel, Iran's regional rivals are going to view this move as an escalation.
Meanwhile, Civil Human Rights Front in Hong Kong replaced the annual New Year's Day march with a protest. The demonstration was held through the city to demand the release of jailed protesters. Civil Human Rights Front is a pro-democracy political group that organized major protests in 2010 against the controversial extradition bill. And this time, activists drove around Lai Chi Kok Detention Center, where a number of jailed protesters are serving their sentence. Activists then headed to Kowloon and reached the Hong Kong Legislative Council, where they concluded the demonstration. During the same time last year, more than 1 million people joined protests organized by the Civil Human Rights Front. People demanded democratic elections and a probe into the behavior of the police during the pro-democracy protests. Since China imposed the draconian national security law in Hong Kong, it has launched a systematic crackdown on pro-democracy activists. In the latest, Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai was ordered to go back to jail after the city's top court refused to extend his bail.
The United States Senate has delivered a major rebuke to Donald Trump in the final weeks of his presidency. Republican and Democrat senators united to override the president's veto of a major defense bill. The vote passed by more than the required two-thirds majority and follows a similar bipartisan motion in the House of Representatives. It's the first time Congress has overridden a Trump veto. The move unlocks more than $700 billion worth of military spending.
An all-British catch landed at Brixham in Devon. These waters have been fished by British and European boats for centuries, making fish a totemic issue in the Brexit battle for sovereignty. But while British fishers were at the forefront of the march to Brexit, the promise of winning back control of their waters has been broken. A small increase in quota after a 5-year transition period, some EU access retained. Many here feel they were the price to be paid for a UK-EU trade deal.
Fishing accounts for a tiny fraction of the UK economy, yet its importance in the trade talks has been far greater than that, one of the last major issues to be resolved. Remember, the Brexit vision was about taking back control of Britain's laws, of its borders and of its waters.
There are massive traffic jams at various border posts as travellers head back home. It's nothing new, but it seems COVID-19 checks are adding to the congestion. Home Affairs earlier announced that additional officials will be deployed.
Certainly to do. We just did a walkabout with the minister, even going into that Great Bridge border across that infested river there. We saw a shocking scene, really. Gives an idea of how many undocumented South Africans, or I beg your pardon, Zimbabweans are in the country. We saw more than a dozen essentially just doing cat and mouse between them and the SANDF officials trying to enter the country. It was something out of a movie, going down that bridge with a rope. Quite daring scenes that we saw there.
To combat the soaring coronavirus infections, the French government has brought forward its nighttime curfew by 2 hours in 15 regions. The curfew will now be beginning at 6 p.m. rather than 8 p.m. in 15 of France's 101 regions, and areas affected by the switch from Saturday include Les Alpes, that is Maritimes, where the Mediterranean city of Nice is located. The other areas are concentrated in the east of the country, and Paris has been spared the additional restriction for now. The measure has been urged by mayors who were increasingly concerned about local health systems being overburdened by an influx of new cases. Pushing the reopening date for a second time, theatres, cinemas and concert halls would not be able to reopen from January 7th. The French government will assess the impact of this earlier curfew on these 15 regions in a week's time. And if the situation were to deteriorate further, officials say an incremental measure could go as far as a lockdown.
Britain on Friday reactivated emergency hospitals built at the start of the pandemic and shut primary schools in London, one of the areas worst hit by a more infectious variant of the coronavirus. With more than 50,000 new daily cases of COVID-19 in the last 4 days, the health service said it was preparing for an anticipated rush of patients and needed more hospital beds. The announcement comes just days after the Royal London Hospital told staff in an email it was now in disaster medicine mode and unable to provide high-standard critical care. The temporary Nightingale hospitals at locations such as convention centers have barely been used since the start of the outbreak, but have remained on standby. According to the Royal College of Nursing, the country does not have enough nurses to staff the new sites, especially with many sick with the virus or forced to isolate.
Ragazzi, questo è lo schifo dell'uomo, i fuochi d'artificio, centinaia di uccelli morti, centinaia di uccelli morti a via Cavour, sì. Una cosa imbarazzante, una cosa triste, incredibile. Incredibile, mi è passata già la gioia. Guardate quanti sono. Guardate quanti sono. Io mi dispiace solo a passarci sopra. Uccelli morti, ragazzi.
Madonna, aspetta un attimo, fermati un attimo.
Uccelli morti.
Fermati un attimo.